So the Trump people have absolutely been getting crushed this week with several losses. And in fact, they're preparing to lose some more. Check this out. Trump White House prepares tariff fallback ahead of court ruling. And basically, we're talking about the tariffs in front of the Supreme Court. And the Trump people are already talking about, okay, if we lose, what are we going to do? And if you look at this more closely, this is from Bloomberg. The White House says White House Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair said he thinks there's a 50-50 chance or better of the administration winning the case. So if you want to take the reverse, that means 50-50 chance of losing. I think it's probably a little bit higher than that on the losing end, but you never know. There's a lot of Trump people on the Supreme Court. In the opening arguments, though, I'll say this, it looked pretty bad for the Trump people. So they're already making plans on what happens if we lose the Supreme Court. There's going to be a big fight on money. This is calculated by Bloomberg Economics. I'll read it. It says, an adverse court ruling could force the administration to give back more than $88 billion in duties already collected. And just imagine how this is going to play out. There's going to be a big fight over this $88 billion. Essentially, people are going to be like, you tax me illegally, give me back my money. And I imagine a scenario where like Trump people are like, can try to slow this down or be like, money? What money? I never taxed you, right? That kind of stuff. Or they're going to try to implement new types of tariffs to figure out ways to tax or new justifications. I don't think this will necessarily be the end, but I mean, you never know how this is going to play out because you're talking about so much money and the Supreme Court, right? Are they going to fight the Supreme Court? Now, let me show you this. This is an interesting chart here. It says SCOTUS ruling could compromise Trump's tariffs, alternate options he can consider. And the basic gist of it is, again, they're preparing for losing and they're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? And they're going to try to come up with different ways to tax you. And I'll go through these. These are different types of tariffs. And there's one in particular I think is important to look at. So first, you got Section 301, address unfair trade practices. Okay, so they're trying that now. And they have to prove in court, like, okay, this one, it's just like, all these unfairities going on. Unfair, is that a word? But these unfair treatments going on, and therefore we must do tariffs, right? Section 232, address national security threats. Okay, we have to do it, and it's imminent danger, and he'll talk about fentanyl or whatever. Like he will have to make all these cases of like why you have to do each tariff, and those 301 and 232. Okay, now the other ones they could try, and this is where it gets interesting. Section 122. Okay, why would you do that? To address, quote, large and serious balance of payment deficits or imminent and significant depreciation of the dollar. When I read this, the thing that first, came to my mind is, okay, so are you going to try to crash the dollar and then blame someone else? I mean, I just wouldn't be shocked with anything that Trump does these days. So you're just reading the different types of tariffs, right? And that really stood out to me. I just, he pushes crypto and people have already talked about that, like, is he purposely trying to move us all to Trump coin? I mean, you never know. You never know. And then blame someone else after Trump coin fails, right? Then you got Section 338 to retaliate against countries that discriminate against the commerce of the United States. So you have to prove something there. So these are some of the things that they could do to say, okay, we're not going to do the 301 and 232. Now we're going to do different types of tariffs. The tariff situation, the Supreme Court will get really messy as you have multiple countries, multiple industries, and some may be legitimate under the law and some may not be, right? It's going to get really, really crazy. I'm just showing you guys a list of this stuff. And then on top of that, while you're, fumbling about how are we going to get back the $88 billion that you're going to have to return to people or, try to slow walk it, the Trump family is losing, because they're losers this week, money in crypto. Now, this is paper wealth, to be fair, or crypto wealth, if you want to call it. It's very, very volatile, and essentially this is what the Trump family does these days. It's really moved away from real estate and into the crypto stuff. And even when they do real estate stuff, as we talked about before in the Maldives situation, where they partner with things with the Saudis, and they'll try to do like they call it tokenization of the ownership of the Maldives thing. So essentially what it is it's just easier ways to launder and bring in money from whatever sources, right? And lately, though, crypto has been on the downturn, so that's been affecting the Trump people. It says crypto crash is eroding wealth for Trump's family and followers. They're heavily embedded in this stuff. And Eric goes on TV all the time, and he complains about banks and stuff like that. And then in his words, he was like, we got to have crypto because it could be late on a Friday night, 11 o'clock, and I need to transfer $500 million and I'm drinking wine with my wife. And he really said that. It's so ridiculous. So let's read some more of this stuff and you realize like how ludicrous this stuff is. Says in President Donald Trump's second term, crypto assets transform his family's wealth, right? So they're really more crypto people now. Now the Trumps and their followers are getting a crash course in wild volatility ingrained in cryptocurrencies, right? A lot of these go up and down. A lot of these basically go bust, dog coins, whatever, right? And that's what the Trump people are into. They're into meme coins. The value of the Trump branded meme coin has fallen by about a quarter since August. Eric Trump's stake in Bitcoin mining venture has shed roughly half its value from its peak. And shares of Trump's social media company, which hoarded Bitcoin this year, of course they did, are hovering near all-time low. And then it's also saying here the Trump's family fortune, I guess it's gone down by $1 trillion, fallen to 6.7 billion from 7.7 billion. And sorry, it's actually their value has been gone down $1 billion. It's all of crypto's gone down by $1 trillion. Just want to make that clear. Point being though is that a lot of their money is in this stuff. Now, whether or not the Trump family is really worth, the 6.7 billion, it's anyone's guess, to be frank with you guys. A lot of the stuff is paper. A lot of the stuff is heavily on leverage. Trump and his people, though, are saying, hey, guys, things are going to be awesome next year. Just wait. It takes time for the Trump policy to kick in. But, what happens? Like, what are they going to say after essentially, like, much of their policy, the first you have the Doge stuff, right? That's no longer exists. I talked about in the last video. And then what if you reverse all these tariffs, right? What's that going to do if that's supposedly we're getting all rich off this stuff? I want to show you guys this. This is coming from CNBC, and actually, I think it might be a JP Morgan chart. Yeah, it's JP Morgan. And they're essentially asking people, what do you think about the economy, right? While the Trump people brag about crypto and tariffs and stuff like that, these are average people, right? Average confidence on the trajectory of the U.S. economy by income. So the way that everyone's been talking about is it's all K-shaped economy. So if you think of the letter K, people at the top, they're going up, basically. People towards the bottom going down. And you can actually see it in these type of charts to where, hey, if you're high income on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think about the economy? Oh, 6.2, which isn't great, to be frank, though, right? Middle income, about 4.5, and then low income, 4.4. And you just see it in all the numbers and the way, everything is coming out. When you check out what the Trump people want to do, they want to transform the economy and they brag about all this money coming into AI and stuff like that, like data centers, which we talked about several times on this channel. This was interesting because this was coming from Norway, someone who managed their sovereign wealth fund. I think it's the biggest in the world. And they were saying AI risks deepening inequality, says head of the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. So you see it in like just various surveys, like you're looking around, like I was showing you, like say in USA, just regular people, you can see the difference between, haves and have-nots, one way to put it. And if you keep pushing this, AI type of stuff where you replace jobs and replace workers, like what do you think is going to happen? You're just going to have a very small group of people who still have resources and everyone else end up with nothing. Let me read you what they say in Norway here. And I just want to tell you the truth on this stuff. It's what they say from Norway. You need prior education, you need electricity, you need digital infrastructure. There's a potential for this to amplify differences in the world, right? Rich get richer, poor get poor. That's what we're talking about. Quote here, another, there is a potential for splitting societies and there is a real potential for splitting the world into countries which can afford it and countries which cannot afford it. And regarding, affordability, these kind of things, I mean, remember Trump, that's been his new thing that he's been talking about. He likes to talk about new words to him as affordability. Before, the new word for him was groceries, and I guess the latest new word was skedaddle. It's always, he's so out of touch with regular people, but one of the things we're going to be watching, and guys, I know it's not fun to talk about stuff, but it's important to go over the money stuff. But we want to watch what's going to happen this holiday season. Some of the retailers out here, the ones that are saying they're going to maybe doing okay, is your Walmart, Gap, TJ Maxx, like discount retailers. So that kind of tells you the full story, right? And it was recently, I think it was Walmart was saying that consumers of all income levels are starting to go there. Let me read a little bit of this and you get a sense of what's going on. So what their predictions are, and we don't know. That's why you see predictions and you'll see what actually comes out. So according to the National Retail Federation, expects retail sales in November, December to grow 3.7 to 4.2%, right? Compared with the same period a year ago. And I think a lot of this, well, there's two things I want to say about this. So I think a lot of this, though, may represent inflation. And then the other part may represent, and if you've been following the charts and this stuff, the people who are more wealthy or more affluent are making up a larger portion of consumer, sales, or just consumer market, or however you want to say it, in the USA. So if that keeps getting pushed up, then it's really going to have damaging effects on the bottom half of society. And it's frustrating, and I get frustrated when I talk about this stuff with you guys, because it's just clear. Like you can see it in the government policy, you can see it in the way that Trump talks, and you can just see it in reflection of retail, and the way people say it. So, for example, here's a quote: "American consumers may be cautious in sentiment, yet they fundamentally remain strong and continue to drive the U.S. economy." That's coming from a trade group, and we'll see. They're trying to stay positive on this stuff, because when you look at Macy's, what they're saying, and this is again every trade group or company is going to say something different. So Macy's says here, Macy's wants cash-strapped shoppers to know they have options this holiday. And I'll just say this, like it's not good when that's what they have to say. Like, this is what we're talking about, cash-strapped shoppers. So CEO Tony Spring recently told the NBC News the company's focus is on offering shoppers a range of options, okay? So quote, "Hopefully people are feeling like they have an opportunity to invest in gifts this season, and if they're having to be frugal, and if they're having to be careful, and if they're having to make choices, we've got options." And, there's a lot of stuff that may not be available or too expensive, because as of now, right, I think the tariffs are still in place, and a lot of stuff comes from China, you guys know. So like electronics, toys, Christmas decorations. And I'd be curious, I want to hear from people in the USA. Have you noticed that Christmas decorations are more expensive this year? Now, to be fair, though, a lot of retailers ordered a bunch of stuff ahead of time before the tariffs, right? But some stuff, may not be. And if you've maybe been trying to, get stuff off online that are coming from other places, which, like, Christmas decorations is an interesting one. I think a lot of it comes from China. Same with Halloween costumes. Prices likely will go up. And, this is where, like, this particular week is really important to the U.S. economy. Again, you're talking about holiday shopping. You're talking about Thanksgiving travel. The government's saying, and I think this may also be AAA, because I saw the FAA was saying that they're expecting a lot of traveling and Thanksgiving. I don't know. We're going to see how it ends up being, because you're going to have a combination of high expectations on, say, travel, and then you also have a winter storm coming in, right? And then when you look at what Trump people are doing, they're chasing away money, which is crazy. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. So first, we talked about earlier this week where foreign student enrollments are down. It was down pretty significant. And then now we're talking about FIFA, and I guess Haiti qualified for the World Cup is like the first time in several years. And I guess we're not welcoming the fans. And I was really sorry to hear this. I'll read the details of this one. It just basically says, like, I guess we're just not interested in having tourists, I guess is what we're saying. It says the Trump administration will not grant any special exceptions for Haitian soccer fans hoping to travel to the U.S. to follow their teams the next year's FIFA World Cup, right? So they qualified, and it's like the first time since 1974. So like 50 years. And so, it's a big deal. And especially if you're a soccer fan, and I know a lot of people like soccer in Haiti. So I guess we're going to let in it says the players, their families, coaches, and support personnel, right, can come, but not for, it says the State Department confirmed Politico on Friday that this exemption will not apply to Haitian fans or spectators hoping to attend. And just when you put all this stuff together, this is the kind of situations where it's just like, I guess we're just chasing away, tourism, like literally blocking tourism. And I just think it's absolutely nuts. There's a lot of stuff that the Trump people do nuts, but this bigger one, like I said, I just want to put perspective of just regular people who, really, really like this stuff, and your team hasn't gone for 50 years and you'd like to go, and there's like, no, you can't come. So I find that really sickening, to be frank. There's a lot of things that are sick about the USA, and also too, there's probably people don't want to come anyway. I'll just also be frank on that, because, why go if ICE is going to harass you, and that's going to be a whole fiasco in itself. So there's that. So anyway, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.